And welcome to the Impact Radio Show presented by the Florida Star newspaper. This is your host, Nahshon Nicks. We got a great show in store for you on tonight. We got some great guests, some great dialogue, some great discussion. And I want to encourage you to do business with one of the oldest Black-owned newspapers in the South, the Florida Star newspaper. Listen, you go to thefloridastar.com, and I want you to subscribe to the Florida Star newspaper. Also, promote your business, your service, your product, your event, your youth group, men's group, outing activity. I want you to do business with the Florida Star newspaper. We have over 30,000 subscribers between South Georgia and North Florida. That's the Georgia Star for South Georgia and the Florida Star for North Florida. Do business with the Florida Star newspaper. Once again, this is your host, Nahshon Nicks. Listen, everybody, it's a lot going on. It's a new day, fresh grace, fresh mercy, and I'm just excited about it. How you feeling out tonight, Mr. Brown?
In the building. Glad to be here. I appreciate you guys for inviting me on and ready to talk about how Black folks can empower themselves.
Yes, and how you feeling out tonight, Miss Vanessa?
I'm doing all right. I am trying to embrace like a mindset, like one of those mind over matter things. So I'm hoping surrounding myself by what looks like, you have to see us on Facebook Live. It looks like snow, and it definitely doesn't look like anywhere in Florida. But I'm
No.
trying to put myself in that mindset to stay cool.
Yes. And pertaining to empowerment, Mr. Brown, from my understanding, you're with the NAACP. Can you tell everybody what your role is and what do we need to be aware of? What do we need to be paying attention to?
Well, first of all, for the listening audience, I kind of want to, give an informal introduction of myself. I've been pretty much doing community work since 2005, 2006. Fort Benning, Georgia, dealing with the Katrina evacuees. I then moved into other organizations while I was active duty Army. Since I've been back in Jacksonville, I've been a member of several different organizations. And now I am currently the co-chair of the Economic Committee with the local branch of the NAACP. We are an organization, of course, that is one of the oldest, that was established in 1909. We have 24 committees. Of course, I am the co-chair of the Economic Committee. And I just want, the listening audience out there to know that the NAACP is definitely still out in these streets. I know the perception is that we are pretty much antiquated, old, and out of touch, but we are not. And just want the viewing or the listening audience to know that we are also involved in some activities, including the one we participated in before I got on the call, which was a monthly canvassing that we do around the Edward Waters campus to try to get buy-in from the community. We also do monthly cleanups, and we also are trying to meet with a group of leaders to try to revitalize a church to make that the hub of the community moving forward, and to establish one brick at a time, one block at a time, and build up the community so we can be on time.
I hear you on that. And when you're talking about economic empowerment, I'm just curious what that looks like because personally, when I think of the NAACP, I think about Justice Thurgood Marshall. I think about civil rights. So how does the economic compartment work with the NAACP? What does that look like?
Well, again, like I said before, we have a number of different committees. I know the perception is we are a civil rights activist organization, but within that, there have been a lot of things that the NAACP, has done behind the scenes. I am very passionate about economics because I believe building our own institutions out of this issue. That's how we got socially engineered in the predicament that we're in today. I believe that's how we're going to kind of get ourselves out. And economics is one of the things that we do. I know that's not the perception, but I kind of want to change that narrative a little bit because I think too often we get kind of bogged down with, social justice and what does it look like in terms of how we treat it. But, without ownership, you can't control your own destiny. And so my approach is, even though people may have this perception of the NAACP, I want to be very blunt. I want to be very clear that there are other entities and there are other committees, if you will, that are committed to, trying to provide something for ourselves so we can employ our own, and we can also control what goes in our community. I don't think we hear that narrative enough.
No, and I don't think we actually hear that narrative enough. You actually sound like one of my guests that I've had a couple times, Mr. Dallo Seabrooks. He's real big on ownership and control. And
shout out to Dallo.
Yes, and the Black Commission. And what happens is that because I'm a now let me ask you this, Mr. Brown, and Vanessa, you can chime in if you like. Do you see a difference between social justice and economic justice?
I definitely see the idea of social justice being more explored as of late. I do believe that they do go hand in hand. At a certain level, it's about resources, and the economic justice piece is a major part of societal issues.
Yeah. And like I said, now I'm not going to jump too far ahead, but what's your take on that, Mr. Brown? What's the difference? What would be your say if somebody says, "Oh, so you're doing social justice?" And you're like, "No,
right.
I'm not doing social justice. I told you it's economic justice." So what's the difference, or how do you differentiate the two?
Well, how I articulate it, I'm going to channel my inner Claude Anderson, and he tells us that we should only focus in on two major issues, which is race and wealth. Everything else is a horizontal issue. Those two things are a vertical issue. So in other words, your issue should go straight up and down. Our issue shouldn't be gender, shouldn't be about religion because it's too divisive and also it's counterproductive. Again, if you do not control your own institutions, for example, we're having issues now with tenure, just using the 1619 project, for example, with my sister there in North Carolina. And because that's not her own institution, and because she doesn't have any institutional control, she's not able to give that much needed teaching in terms of the history since 1619, since we got over here in terms of the 1619 project. Social justice deals with more of acceptability from the dominant society and allowing us to go into their institutions. Economic justice deals with creating your own institutions and creating a narrative and having control of your own destiny. To me, that is the fundamental difference between the two.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I do believe that they both can coexist, and I believe that they both serve relevance. Obviously, before Jackie Robinson crossed over into Major League Baseball, you look at the National League of Color Baseball. This was actually right here in Jacksonville. And when you look at the economic impact of Black baseball, I mean, you can only imagine what Durkeeville or what Black communities look like on a Sunday after church when you got people standing in line for concessions. You got folks parking cars and all that money that's being bought or spent on tickets and concessions is actually staying in the communities where the athletes are entertaining their own people. And like I said, but when they kind of cross over to MLB, it's like we've kind of lost some of our best and brightest. And I would even go as far as to say, even when it comes to HBCUs, that was something that kind of differentiated Black athletes from other athletes at predominantly white institutions, is that Black athletes, they kind of held up the banner because football brought in so much revenue to the institution, and just looking at people like Walter Payton, going to a HBCU, Michael Strahan going to a HBCU,
Jerry Rice, right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And now, you know, obviously they weren't able to get the same spotlight pertaining to major media outlets like an NBC, ABC, Sports Center, you know, what would be considered a sports center during that day and time. So, you know, a lot of the Black community was able to benefit from the talent that they actually groomed. And then in reverse, and Vanessa, you gotta let me know if I'm wrong about this. When I hear about one of the oldest classics in Duval pertaining to Reigns and Reebok, and I do not want to upset anybody, but you're looking at close to $250,000 that's being spent.
Come on now. I thought I was the only one. Come on.
You're looking at $250,000 between concessions and tickets.
Still dusty over there.
Right. And why in the world does Washington Heights still look the same? Why do the streets still look the same? Why does it still look the same? And I'm still trying to figure out what they did with that money for the graveyard, or you know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with making sure that our ancestors
still look like a graveyard.
And I'm trying to figure out where is all the revenue and the pride for the community that you came from. And they talk about
you say you got so much pride, right? Yeah, I ain't mean to cut you off on this.
So many millionaire athletes. It's produced so many folks that went to the next level pertaining to the NFL, and the reinvestment is not there. So there has to be a disconnect. And like I said, I'm just looking at things from different lenses. And we don't, obviously, this is a very short broadcast, so there's no way that we can, you know, deep dive onto everything. Yeah. But I just want to put that out there because we have the resources. I don't believe we leverage the resources that we have now. And I got to put a shameless plug out there to Pareto Clinic at Shell Sweet Center at EWC. Yeah. Because they are cutting edge with medicine and technology in a predominantly Black community to be able to serve the people that they came from. And like I said, obviously, you know, there's other businesses that have professionals in pharmaceuticals, medicine, engineering, architectural, and nursing, and things of that nature, and even business development. But it's great when we're able to bring those resources back to the communities that look like you and reflect you. And I also want to put a shameless plug out there for marketing, because that's why these media outlets are so important. Because a lot of times people cannot support a Black-owned business if they don't even know the Black-owned business can meet their needs. So, and that's where the star comes in at. We got Miss Shawana Brooks coming in on the next segment. We're going to take a pause for the calls. You're listening to the Impact Radio Show presented by the Florida Star newspaper. This is your host, Nahshon Nicks. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, Nahshon.
Miss Shawana Brooks, you better take yourself. I want to see your face.
No,
hey, I got something to say about that range.
We still live on social media. We still live. I seen you on the news.
You think me on the news, right? And I want to be just as cute in y'all memory, which unfortunately,
you ain't got the shower cap on, do you?
Man, in the last 30 minutes, everything broke down. I was like, oh my God, let me get home. But I'm so excited. This conversation is right up my alley.
Hey, that Reigns and Reebok. When we come back from break, Vanessa, you get on it because I got to dig in deep.
All I'm going to say is I went to Fletcher, and we don't need boosters at Fletcher. You understand? The people will reinvest. They give their money back to their school. They go to the game. They give that money back. There's no booster program for Fletcher, middle, high, and they don't need to be.
Don't get me started.
And welcome back to the Impact Radio Show. I got to get my guests back in line. They trying to take over the show. Anthony Brown want to tell us what we're going to talk about.
Solutions.
Yes, good people. This is the Impact Radio Show presented by the Florida Star newspaper. Please get up, get out, and support the Florida Star newspaper, thefloridastar.com, one of the oldest Black-owned newspapers in the South.
Yes.
Listen, we got Shawana Brooks with us. Can you just say something to the people real quick, Miss Shawana?
Of course, just again, thank you so much again, Nahshon. I'm so excited to be in this conversation with you guys, where it really again
Yes,
connects
sir.
to social justice, economic injustice, right? How are we paying it back, and how we again holding that accountability towards those people who came out of our communities and where they should be again stewarding that money, those resources right back. It's at a loss knowing how much money has come out of Reigns, right? Where everybody wants to come to the Reigns and Reebok reunion and do stuff, but again, like that neighborhood, be in that underserved community where taxes need to be really, more people need to be investing, staying back in there. Where is that money going? Why are we always so happy to give it back out to our counterparts and not to make sure that it's coming back to that school, to those communities, to that neighborhood, to those kids, right? You're all on so point, and I'm just excited to share more.
Yeah, and don't get me started with the kids, because obviously there's different feeder systems from Hooker Park,
Mhm.
Grant Park, Scott Park, North Jacks. There's so many different, and then I go out and I look at some of their facilities and I'm saying, we got to do better.
Right.
We got to do better. We got to do better. But listen, Brown, I'm gonna give you 1 minute to just, because I see you on your high horse and I know you got to get it out. So go ahead.
Yeah, as it pertains to Reigns and Reebok, first of all, as a disclaimer, I just want to say, love those schools, love what they represent. So please don't get in your feelings, because I'm gonna go ahead and keep it 1,000. I don't see reinvestment in the community. I see everybody gearing up to go out there to the game, but yet and still, when I drive down Moncrief, it look dusty as hell. The
Right.
other thing too is I want to make a suggestion too. Edward Waters, your alma mater, Nahshon, they now have a stadium.
Hold up.
Why can't we have a Northwest Classic in which we have the Reigns and Reebok game there, have a week-long event where we have the Battle of the Bands, we have a block party, and we show people that we can bring businesses in that area, and we can complement that with food trucks, so forth and so on. So we want to show that we can keep money in the community, and also we involved in HBCU, so it shows that there's a Black institution that is involved as well. Also, Reigns and Reeboks get a chunk of that money that goes back into the school. If they cannot promise that they can reinvest that school in terms of development, they don't get none of the money. So I know that sounds a little bit different. I know that sounds outside the box, but in terms of doing that, you have to do that, because we have to have a bottom line, and we have to have an end game in terms of what we're trying to get accomplished. Not only that, but I want to say moving forward that the whole area can benefit, and you give exposure to Reigns and Reebok for those who probably wouldn't have seen them. You give exposure to Edward Waters College. You highlight some of the alumni, and you also highlight, or you put a spotlight on some of the deficiencies that need to be addressed in these particular communities with some of the funding. The other thing too that I want to say, I know it's 1 minute and I'm running over, but in terms of redlining,
I'm gonna put you on a city council.
redlining is an issue that is extremely important in Jacksonville, because we just discussed a minute ago between the difference between social justice and economic justice. Too often I've seen here at the federal level and at the local level that, the white power structure is trying to block us because they say that we can't have race-based initiatives. Well, if you focus it in on something that was specifically done to Black folks, then you can move around that in the area of remedies, reparations, whatever you want to call them. But Jacksonville, is high time that these politicians and these leaders say we need to redistribute some resources in these communities so these folks can own some homes, so they can raise the level of competitiveness with folks who owned them only 150 years ago.
Duly noted. And like I say, you just laid out a 10-point plan. That was very great. Now, when
I know that was over 1 minute.
Yeah, and then you say my alma mater. What we can do is maybe we could do a focus group with decision makers at EWC. So I'm all about shared accountability. This is just one medium to be able to get a message out to saying, listen, we're on your side. We're on your side. We're on the side of our youth. We're on the side of our community. We're on the side of long-term solution-based strategy. We're on the same side, and like I said, there's so much that we can talk about pertaining to economic justice as well as social justice. But I want to give Ms. Shawana Brooks an opportunity to highlight her art, because I thought that it was wonderful that she was actually featured. For those of you that don't know, we're at the anniversary of the public execution of George Floyd, and like I said, this is not the first, but this is the one time where the world stood still to see the same thing at the same time. Ms. Shawana Brooks.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me on. So fun, my household right now, a little bit extra. But
Hey, welcome to New York.
Look, so again, what we're trying to do with our art gallery and the artists that we work with is literally what you all are trying to do here on this show. How are we connecting and bringing conversation, especially where it's centered around our identity and other people of color, and how do we move those margins, right, more to the center, where we're speaking about, and like you said before, we're not just contextualizing Black death and its consistency, right? We love that so much of this year has been about honoring, and knowing that George Floyd has been this catalyst. But like you just said, right, he's not even the first Black person to lose their lives at a convenience store. So we got to consistently remind ourselves, what are we out here for? When we talk about that economic injustice, speaking clear to those counterparts who understand that all of this within systematic practices can only be disrupted with our collective consciousness, right? So it's about feeding the information. It's about civic and community engagement on that consistency. Because if we can't get these, these mindsets to really change, as we know, not all skin folk is kin folk. And when we're trying to make those conversations necessary, when we're talking back to them to make them understand how we need them to be imparted on this greater mission, right? I think art consistently has been that vehicle, but especially where it comes to supporting Black artistry here in Jacksonville, that's been a very elitist scene. It's very dominated in white spaces. So what we're consistently trying to do is move into our specific communities, look at them as cultural deserts. Our business did one of the first major public art projects for the Myrtle Avenue community with our Color Jacks Blue project. So anytime now you drive down Myrtle Avenue, you see those Black faces on that building. You see that Black Votes Matter. That Black Votes Matter is every day. I wanted people to be engaged, to know your votes don't need to just matter when it's time for the politicians to come play. We need to be up on what that accountability looks like. We all mentioned Dialogue, right? Like, I love him in that consistent talk about where we need to be engaged and how we need to be able to speak back to these politicians like, we put you in office. Don't be scared to make those commitments. And we need that 10-point plan that Anthony was talking about, right? Like, how are we making those connections? So when the classic comes up, right, and we are doing that economic development, we are shouting out alumni, we are talking about, Black economics and business across the board. We're still not forgetting that, hey guys, while y'all here partying, enjoying them crabs, getting all fun, debating back and forth about whose school is the best. When it comes time for us to get ready to vote, right, we got the first Black female sheriff trying to get into office. Can we support Lakeisha Burton? Does she know all of the community's issues and both sides, right? We need to make sure we're there to play every time where this comes, and that distribution of Black dollars, right? All of these different initiatives that they're doing around development, who's on that? Who are they hiring? Who's also, going into these neighborhood and communities that they've already destroyed, like we just talked about through redlining? How are we going to bring our people back to buying these houses, reminding ourselves other neighborhoods that we had, that it's not about decentralizing or saying like we don't want diversity in these other neighborhoods, right? But it is important to value Black business, Black neighborhoods, that identity factor, that we know that we can be safe again in our own communities, right? So that negotiation and how we want art to continue where we need to be. And artists are our truth tellers around that. So we're so happy that we just were able to partner with the Jesse Ball DuPont Center. And so people who know what that funding does, they know what that means to be able to get this $150,000 grant to activate this space in their building to now be this way that we talk about arts and social justice. But we also make sure to outline that it is to connect to communities of color and allowing them to first lean in and say what they need before we expect to say what we want them to have.
Yes.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Thanks, Shawana.
On, yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. I wanted to make that connection that both of you guys are activating. It's not just, you're not just talking about things that need to happen in the community. Anthony is out there when on the third or fourth Thursday of every month, walking the community, volunteering, getting in with people. And Shawana is having events and activities this week, especially that people can come out and be a part of.
Yes, and Vanessa, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. So what's going on around Duval? What do we need to know?
Well, besides that, Anthony, can you tell me the next day that you're going to be out walking?
The next day will be
Are you
next
in?
month, June. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, the next canvassing date will be June the 24th. But I want to add something too. We canvassed today right before I came on with a pastor, and there were several churches in the community on Pullman, Sears, Kings Road, so forth and so on the outskirts of Edward Waters. I just want to make a charge, and I want to reach out to the pastors. We have more than enough churches that we can form a coalition. You guys are major influencers in the Black community. And I want to, along with my colleagues, be able to work with you and use your influential powers to get folks, man, civically engaged, let them know about the importance of the power that they have, and not just to be mobilized to vote, but let them know you can write petitions if your council person is not up to snuff. You can put money behind a person that you feel like will represent your best interest. So I just want to kind of reach out to the pastors and let them know, hey, look, hey, we're in this fight, but we can only do so much because you guys influence so many people. So again, I just want to kind of put it out there. Don't want to be divisive, but at the same time, there are some things that you guys can do better, and use that to mobilize your folks, man, as opposed to, get them all hot and sweaty on Sunday. Let's get them hot and sweaty Monday through Saturday, man, in terms of empowering these communities.
Shawana, what you got coming up on Friday?
Well, as you know, this Friday you'll be there. So we are celebrating, well, not celebrating, right? We're commemorating the memorial and the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd. It's what activated us in our business, what really made us distinctive in bringing art around these difficult dialogues, especially where it connects to racial injustice and our racial reckoning that needs continuous conversation. So if people are available, come have a great time, like 4 to 7, a little bit after hours. We're going to open up the center, open up the gallery. We're going to activate our platform performance porch. We're going to have Ngoma Thunder African American drum troupe will be there. Miss Vanessa Davis will be giving us libations at every bottom of the hour so that we can honor our ancestors and all the lives that we have lost to white supremacy. And it's important to say that, right? So we're, again, come on through, see the art. The artist will also be there. Her name is Kirsten Williams. And we're just going to let it flow naturally, right? Like on that last Tuesday, there was an impromptu sing-along for Lift Every Voice. I couldn't have planned that if I wanted to, right? So this is what we want, that engagement, having you all there, connecting, and how do we need to go forward as these conversations keep happening?
Yes, we're going to have to bring you back, Ms. Shawana. Is that all, Ms. Vanessa? We're at the last 60 seconds.
Yeah, all I want to say is what you need to know is that Sam Newby and Terrence Freeman are now president and vice president of Jacksonville City Council. This is historic. This is great. And this just ties in the conversation we've been having all day. I think we need to bring Anthony and Shawana back. I just think so. This conversation is too great for 30 minutes.
Hey.
Yes, if we can still bring that back. Once again, congratulations, City Council President Sam Newby, and City Council Vice President Mr. Terrence Freeman. Congratulations to the both of you. Hopefully you all continue to lead our city and City Council in the right direction, knowing that the decisions that you make impact the current and future generations of our city.
Yes.
Listen, with closing thoughts, the book teaches us that when the people come together, nothing shall be impossible for them. So once again, this is not the white thing or the black thing. This is us getting behind issues that are systemic, and we need all hands on deck. Obviously, we can't cover everybody's issue, but we can't deny that there has been a marginalized portion of our city pertaining to the Black community that has been neglected for decades. We need social and economic justice. I want to see our best educators get compensated for teaching children that look just like them in the communities that they got their start. I want our principals to be compensated, not when they transfer across town, but right here in our communities. So they don't have to relocate and have another change of guard, and the children have to get reacclimated, every 2 to 3 years with new leadership. I want our children, I want our communities. I would love to see community policing. Even if you don't live in this city, I don't believe that you should be able to police a community that's predominantly Black and you don't know 10 neighbors. You don't know 10 families. And yes, Anthony Brown has challenged the pastors. Before we had Black police officers, we had a Black church. Before we had Black bankers, we had the Black church. Before we had Black politicians, we had the Black church. Before we had Black schools, we had the Black church. And we need our pastors, female and male, to hold their ground and prepare the people for the future and prepare them for what's ahead. And this is the all hands on deck. It's shared accountability. So it's not, we're just going to keep pointing fingers at each other. Let's come together and let's make a dominant impact. Listen, as I always say, knowledge is power. Knowledge of self is powerful, and knowledge of God is a source of all power. Please get up, get out, and support the Florida Star newspaper. I love.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
This is great.
Thank you so much, guys.
Later.
That's awesome. Bedtime.
Later.
Why are you still on there, Nahshon?
I'm actually ending it now. All right, and I will see you shortly.